Hi, I'm Matt from Hoboken Horology, and today I have a 2021 Speedmaster Professional. This is the newest and latest Speedmaster. This just came out earlier this week. And today I want to go over the differences between the Sapphire and the Hesalite crystal. It was really difficult for me to choose between the two, and I ended up with the Hesalite crystal version. I'm not saying that this version is better than the Sapphire version. There are just major differences between the two that I would love to talk about today. And I also want to just mention, I'm going to be covering the pros of both of these watches, only the things that I think are the positives between the two, not a negative one way or the other. So I think we can get started on it. Right away, there's a lot of similarities. They have roughly the same bracelet except for the polishing difference. They have the same dial except for the applied logo. So let's go into the differences, and we're going to start right here with the Sapphire version. So the number one reason, in my opinion, to have the Sapphire version is this applied logo right here versus the printed logo on the Hesalite version. So the applied logo is very much like the pre-Moon Speedies. I'm sure it's in person, it's beautiful. It has this great polishing on the logo. So in some instances, it's going to disappear. In others, it's going to shine really nicely. The second reason is the Expedition caseback, which is like a see-through caseback. It's sapphire on the back of the watch so that you can see the movement clearly. And it's a beautiful movement. It's brand new from Omega. It was used in precious metal speedies before this one. And the third difference is the height difference. The Sapphire watch is actually slightly lower in profile than the Hesalite version. So there is a reason to actually have that if that's something that concerns you. I think it's due to the solid caseback. I actually think the Sapphire caseback on this is a little bit thinner than the solid caseback. But I'm not 100% sure where that height difference completely comes from. Now, the other difference is the bracelet. So you can see on the Hesalite, this is all like a satin or brushed finish. And on the Sapphire version, it's really like a polished kind of, these polished little, not center links, but they're kind of like side center links. So these polished side center links, they give it a very different look. Whereas this, on the Hesalite version, it all kind of, to me, it blends together. It gives it a very different look. So it is a very different look, depending on if that's what you're going for. It's a little bit flashier. So the polished links, they match this kind of polished logo here and some polished parts on the case. But for me, because of the differences, the polished applied logo and the polished links, they kind of go together, and they give you this kind of a little bit of a flashier, a more flashier Speedmaster. Also, it's kind of the previous bracelet had some polished links in it, so it does have a reason to be there. And I think that some people, or I think a majority of people, will actually want this kind of a little bit more of a flashy look, not as subtle as the Hesalite version is. And of course, I saved the best for last. The reason you would go with a Sapphire is, of course, a sapphire crystal. It's on every modern watch today. Even low-end watches have sapphire crystals, but every single high-end watch uses sapphire as their crystal. These things are near impossible to scratch. I have personally scratched sapphire crystals before. A door frame, a brick wall, a diamond ring, something catches your watch the wrong way, you can scratch a sapphire crystal. But this is the watch that will hold up to everyday use. You can wear it, 24/7. That crystal is not really going to get scratched unless it's an extreme or you hit it in the way that I mentioned. So there is a very solid reason to have a Sapphire Speedy, especially this version. It's thinner than the other version. It's a nice overall. The bracelet has those polished links, which might be really attractive to some people. And of course, that applied logo, which I think, a lot of people want that applied logo. It's very reminiscent of pre-Moon Speedies. So now let's move over to my version, or the one I have, the Hesalite version. So the Hesalite version, we have this print dial, which is very reminiscent of the previous version, Speedmaster. not necessarily closer to the pre-moon, but a modern Speedmaster has that printing on the dial. The bracelet. Now, to me, this bracelet, it just perfectly, I mean, these links, these little like side center links kind of disappear. It perfectly, it matches the watch so nicely. And the way the light catches all of the kind of brushed finished with these lines, it's just, honestly, it's perfect. Some people I've seen say that they would love this bracelet on either of the two versions, just the brushed finish. Now, I will say, if you wanted a brushed finish bracelet, this is a little off topic. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, it's much easier to brush a polished bracelet than it is to polish a brushed bracelet, because you'd have to tape all this off and polish just these links. Whereas if you did have a Sapphire and you wanted this kind of bracelet, you could probably just brush these links. But if you look carefully, they are seated, so it would be difficult to do either one. It would be difficult to polish them, it'd be difficult to brush them. But again, in my opinion, it'd be easier to brush than polish. But anyway, let's keep moving on. On the back, it's a solid case back, which most Speedies had, especially all of the flight qualified ones. Now, when it comes to the crystal, this is the Hesalite crystal. This is, to me, there are three reasons that you would want a Hesalite crystal instead of Sapphire. Okay? The number one reason is that the distortion is different on the dial. It has some distortion when you look at the dial, and whereas the Sapphire, the edges of the Sapphire can sometimes get like a milky or haloed effect. A milky ring is what a lot of Speedy collectors call it. And I've been told by Omega sales reps that they've removed the milky ring completely. I've been told by people who have owned the watch that it's still there. They can still see it. And if you look at some of the review photos online, even this one on Omega's site, you can almost kind of actually make out that there's something there. The Hesalite version definitely has less glare. It definitely has less of that kind of crystal look to it. It really, the plexiglass, or as Omega calls it, Hesalite, really does form nicely. Number two is the overall feel. It's a funny thing that doesn't really have a specific way to describe it. It's just the way that the watch feels and looks on the wrist. It really does give you that kind of vintage feel in a modern piece. And number three, if you do scratch this, which you most likely will, you can polish it. And I've done some research online. I've looked at several forums, and I was wondering if there is like a limit or a suggested amount of polishing that can be done. And a lot of consensus online is that you could pretty much polish this crystal as much as you'd need to. As many times as you probably would until you would probably service the watch, or if it got to a point where you would need to bring it to a service to have it replaced. But again, if this crystal could go to the moon and people wear this every day as their daily beater, I don't see a reason why this crystal couldn't hold up over years. I mean, we see vintage Speedies. I have one that are, 30 years old that have the same crystal, and it looks, it's in great shape. So the fifth reason, and this is a little, this is the fifth reason I think we're covering. This isn't 100% said, but from my research, Omega tests both of these watches to the way that NASA used to test them, because NASA isn't qualifying watches anymore. I don't think they really need to. So, to my information, Omega has qualified both of these for space travel doing the same tests, but I'm not 100% sure if they've qualified the Sapphire version, because it's been said that NASA would only qualify something that wouldn't shatter in space, and because this is on the wrist, it's prone to having damages or something like that. And this Hesalite crystal will not shatter. It will crack, where a large piece of it will come off, but it won't shatter into a million little razor blade fragments that would float around a space station and cause all kinds of trouble and issues for the operator. So, to my understanding, this is still qualified 100% for space travel, but I'm not sure if the Sapphire version is. So, it is kind of cool knowing that you have a watch that's possibly still qualified for space travel, and it's the same crystal that was used to go to the moon. And so the next reason And this is kind of a big one between the two. This one is almost $1,000 cheaper than the Sapphire version. So you're still getting the exact same movement. You're still getting the exact same dial, except for that applied logo. And you're still getting a bracelet that, like I said, I think a lot of people are going to prefer the satin finish to the polished links. You're getting a very I mean, I can't go on enough about bracelets. I really have a problem when it comes to watch bracelets, how much I enjoy this engineering. It's just fantastic. So, and the last reason that I want to cover for this, and this may have been a big factor for me choosing one or the other, is the availability. Now, I was very, very fortunate and very lucky to own this Hesalite version. But that said, when I went out to the store and I called, 10 Omega boutiques in my area, I was looking for a Sapphire version. And until I saw the Hesalite version, I wanted to see it. I wanted to try it on. And I bought the Hesalite version just because it was available, and the bracelet, for me, it was the availability and the bracelet. Those were the two big factors for me. But I think between the two and down the line, when both of these are available, I think price is going to really come into it for some people. People say that even this watch is too expensive. It is way too expensive. Honestly, I would have paid more for it than they had listed. For me, the price, this is the Speedmaster I've been waiting for. This is the one I've been waiting for forever. I didn't want the previous model because I had a vintage Speedy. This feels a little bit too much like my vintage Speedy, but I think for a lot of people that don't own those vintage Speedmasters, who own the previous generation, they're going to want this. And I think that's why Omega made this watch like this, because they made both of these watches with the applied logo and the very thin sapphire crystal, which is perfect on this. It's even, the sapphire is thinner than the Hesalite version. Omega made this watch because they wanted people who had the previous Speedmaster to try this on and think, this is different enough. It feels different enough. I want this new one. Yeah, again, for me, the choice, it came to the Hesalite. I was a little concerned with with how the crystal would hold up on a brand new watch, especially at this price point. But, it was strong enough to make it to the moon and back. And people have been wearing this Hesalite crystal for, like I said, I've seen examples that are 30 years old, and the crystal's fantastic on it. So there's no reason why this can't be an acceptable daily beater that will hold up and is in great shape. But that said, if you want something that's a little bit flashier, you like those polished, and you have to have that applied logo, and I like a solid case back. I really do. I like how it matches my vintage Speedmaster. I like how it has reminiscent of the pre-moon. You can just feel that insignia on the back. But if you want to take a look at that beautiful movement, you're going to want the Sapphire version, because that display case back is gorgeous on it. And it's really nice to see the engineering that Omega put into these watches. So thanks again for watching. I really do think that you can't go wrong either way. That's what any watch blog or watch review site will say. Oh, you can't go wrong either way. But you really can't. You're not going to go wrong either way. And like I said, you could make changes to the bracelet to fit either one. I think you're going to be happy with either of these. Unless you're dead set on one and you buy the other, or you really want that NASA connection, that Hesalite crystal, that warm feel, and then you end up buying the Sapphire because you want it more robust. I could see why someone would regret it one way or the other, but like I'm saying, I really think that either watch, they both have their positives, and I think they're both stunning Speedmasters. I really don't think you're going to go wrong. And either way, polished or not, you're still getting an incredible bracelet on this watch, and you're getting the same case. And that being said, the Hesalite version is still thinner than the previous version of Speedmaster. I think by almost a millimeter or something like that. It's quite thin. I think the other one was 14 something, and this one's 1353. So it's almost a millimeter depending on that difference, which is it's noticeable. It's so slight, but I notice the difference. I can feel it. And again, you can't go wrong either way. I can't say it enough. If you have any questions, I'll try to keep up with the comments below, but I'm notoriously bad at posting videos and not checking up on them. So thank you for watching.